Hello, it's Amy. Well, I know I said I wasn't sure if I'd be back on the 12th of September to read another entry from Emily Lawless's A Garden Diary. But after finishing the one for what'll be yesterday when I post this, the 11th of September, I thought I'd just go ahead and film a reading aloud of the next entry to be posted on the 12th of September, just because it syncs up so well with the dates. And we'll see how we go along. I may try to sync up the dates of the readings and the postings with those in the diary. So here is the diary entry for September 12th, 1899. The epic of weeding has still to be written. It should be undertaken in no light or frolic vein, but with all the gravity that the subject demands. What I should wish to see would be either a careful scientific treatise by a competent authority, or what would perhaps be still better, a great poem, which, like all the highest poetry, would go straight to the very soul of the subject, and leave the votary of it satisfied forever. To the earnest-minded weeder, most other occupations seem comparatively subordinate. Blank is that day, some portion of which has not been devoted to faithful reading. Blank is that night in which, as he lays his head upon the pillow, he cannot say to himself that such a piece of ground has been thoroughly cleared and will not require to be done again for quite a fortnight. One disadvantage it certainly has, but then it is one that it shares with all the other higher and more absorbing pursuits. If inordinately pursued, it tends to grow upon its votary until everything else becomes subsidiary. What was originally a virtue may thus in time come near to growing into a vice. Of this danger I am myself a proof. There have been moments, not many, nevertheless some, when I have found myself sighing for more weeds to conquer. Worse, I have had the greatest difficulty on more than one occasion to keep myself from pouncing upon my neighbour's perfectly private chickweeds and groundsels, which I have happened to catch sight of across a fence. I notice in myself, and have observed in others, a lamentable lack of accuracy as regards the proper name of weeds. Even some that I know the best and hate the hardest, I really cannot put any name to. Now this is not as it should be. Everything, however detestable, has a name of its own, and that name ought to be used. You may not like a man, but that is hardly a reason for calling him what's his name or thingamy. It is true that in the west of Ireland it is regarded as a very unsafe thing to mention any of the more malignant powers by their right names. The Cid, for instance, if spoken of by their proper title, invariably fly at you and do you mischief. The only way of avoiding this peril is to use some obscure and roundabout designation which is not their real name at all. I do not know whether the same mode of reasoning has ever been held to apply to weeds. If so, I cannot say that the plan appears to me to answer. At least I can safely swear that I have never called one of them by its proper botanical name in my life. Yet they rush in on us from all sides and persecute us none the less impitiously. There is one particularly diabolical individual which has clearly marked his garden as its prey, and marches continually to and fro of it like a roaring lion. What its correct name is, I shall in all probability never know, though I have carefully cross-examined several botanical works on the subject. It has narrow, fleshy leaves, a mass of roots constructed of equal parts of pinwire and gutta-percha, the meanest of pinky white flowers, and a smell like sour hay. It is not the leaves, the flowers, the roots, or even the smell that I so much object to. It is the capacity it possesses of flinging out offshoots of itself to incredible distances, which offshoots no sooner touch ground than they begin to weave a kind of ugly green net over everything which reaches, enmeshing it all into a mass of leaves and roots, as is the parent plant. Although I am no nearer expurgating it than I was before yesterday, I have at least been able to name it, a satisfaction which many a poor speaker must have been thankful for, especially in an age grown too picked and tender to allow of even the most obdurate obstructor being dispatched to either the tower or the block. It was Cuddle who provided me with that satisfaction, and it is not one of the least of the many debts that I owe him. What is the name of this thing, I wonder, Cuddle? I said, rising exhausted from an effort to hinder a fresh colony from enmeshing and strangling a line of Lauret missimi which had been recently planted upon the top of a slope. I'm not sure as I can tell you its proper name, ma'am, but about here we calls it Snaking Tommy. Admirable Cuddle, Snaking Tommy, of course. The instant I heard it, I felt convinced that in that preliminary naming of all plants and animals performed by Adam in the Garden of Eden, that and no other must have been the name bestowed upon it. It is true some theologian might assure me that there were no weeds in the Garden of Eden, but that I think is not particularly likely, because whether there were weeds in that garden or not, there are certainly no theologians in this one. Moreover, we all know that the snake was there, to everyone's immeasurable discomfort. And if the snake, why not let me ask, Snaking Tommy? And that's the end of that entry on weeds. And Snaking Tommy definitely sounds like a suitable name for that weed. Can't say I've ever encountered anything quite like it in my own gardening experiences. It's the thistles and the dandelions and whatnot that really do you in where I'm from. Especially those very, very large thistles with the spikes where the roots seem to go, 10 times deeper into the ground than the upper part of the plant itself. And no matter how many times you put on your gloves and pull them, they always seem to reemerge somewhere if you let even a little bit of a root get left behind. But the next diary entry here is for September 14th, 1899. So I'll try to return with another reading on the 14th of September.